Welcome viewers to this new series of lectures on Indian prehistory. Basically what we have been trying to do in the earlier part of this lecture as well, and this is a sequel to it. We are trying to look at fresh archaeological perspectives that can be offered by archaeology in the study of Indian prehistory, Indian proto-history. In the earlier part of this lecture, we largely tried to understand what do we mean by archaeology, what do we mean by artifacts, how meaningfulness in archaeological exploration is arrived at, and despite the claim of archaeology to be dealing with hard facts, to be very precise or to be working with a lot of precision and so forth, we do concede that being material aspect of past, archaeological evidence are measurable, they are quantifiable, but to say that it is a hard fact will be stretching the argument too much, because in ultimate analysis, it is the contextual analysis of archaeological finding which accords voice to otherwise you can say mute and dumb archaeological sources. So, they by themselves do not speak or proclaim. It is the historians who have to make sense out of what has come across through material evidence for a particular point of time in history. Of course, this also means that it cannot be stretched to the level up to which literary sources are used to fantasize or offer dramatic version, or even used as negation of something that could have be a possibility. So, that latitude of interpretation of course is not there in archaeology, but to embellish it purely as a hard fact and very scientific, devoid of any imagination and interpretation, will be like stretching the argument beyond the extent. So, that is what we did in the previous part of the lecture, and in this part of the lecture we will try to see how archaeology and archaeological excavations and archaeological practices they have offered possibilities of interpretations which can be little away from commonsensical logical reconstruction of past. And we will see through examples as to how it is evident in the study of the Indian subcontinental prehistory and proto-history. So, let us put aside the slide that you can see on your screen. This is about limitations which we have covered in the previous part of the lecture. Now, this is also important that there is a site called Pompeii in Europe, and it was a habitation site. It was a full-fledged life and times that we know of in the case of Pompeii, and suddenly on account of eruption of volcanic lava, the settlement got encapsulated, got trapped at one moment, and it is like a living city that was stunned into silence on account of sudden death due to volcanic eruption. And today when one excavates that settlement of Pompeii, it is a living city whose fossilized specimen we discover as archaeological evidence. Now, this is curious this is exceptional. Within quotes, you can say this is delightful for archaeologists, because an archaeologist is getting to see life almost in lived form straight away, and it is not the garbage that we spoke of in the previous lecture. So it is a living town that suddenly got frozen, and we have today got to see and make sense of it. But not all sites are like that. Not all archaeological excavations discover sites like Pompeii, and therefore it is more of an exception. Otherwise, generally what you encounter is a dilapidated building, abandoned building, broken potsherds. Of course, there are deliberate interments like coin hoards, etc. But barring that, these are very few and chance discoveries. Barring that, generally what we discover is the abandoned material of past. Now, let us try and see what fresh insights we can get out of the prehistory or proto-history of the Indian subcontinent with respect to archaeology. Just imagine this. We hear of, say, Paleolithic communities, Mesolithic communities, Neolithic communities, Iron Age communities, and think of an archaeological excavation where, say, largely in a Neolithic culture, we have, say, preponderance of or relative preponderance of hunting and gathering items in terms of wild animal bones, etc. Otherwise, it is a agrarian site in the sense that it is a Neolithic community that we are getting to see through archaeological remains. It is a farming site, but there is a relative preponderance of hunting and gathering remnants or hunting and gathering way of life remnants in terms of animal bones, animal typologies and so forth. One logical way to account for this is, well, it perhaps could be the case that these people are doing agriculture, so they are into the Neolithic phase, all right, but the hunting and gathering mode of subsistence perhaps also existed, and it was not done away with entirely. So, that is one conclusion. But the studies in the Indian subcontinent, archaeological studies have revealed that persistence of stone tool technology of late hunting and gathering among the Neolithic or early farming cultures, and even in the Bronze Age in the cities of Indus Valley was a possibility. And it was a possibility not because of coexistence or persistence of hunting and gathering way of life in Neolithic way of life, but it could well be the case that a particular Neolithic community is in contact with a surviving hunting and gathering community, and they are into some kind of a exchange. Of course, that exchange is not of the dimension or degree or depth of say economic exchange or regular trade exchange, because that is not of that magnitude and systematized, but it could be some customary or need based kind of exchange. And these items, as we discussed, these hunting and gathering items could have been in a Neolithic context because of that exchange, which could have had its own cultural context and so forth. So, the stratified late hunting and gathering stage material accompanied by bones of domesticated animals, pottery, metal tools which the hunters could not have made themselves, That's a possibility. That's a possibility, not only because the two are living together or there is persistence of earlier way of life in Neolithic way of life or Iron Age way of life, but because the two are living in proximity and some kind of exchange is happening. And then it also tells us, this archaeological tradition, this archaeological insight also tells us that it will be little wrong to presume that whenever the so called not superior way of life, say hunting and gathering or Paleolithic or Mesolithic, when they come into contact with a Neolithic settlement, it is not as if Neolithic being a more advanced way of life ultimate or automatically influences Mesolithic way of life, and Mesolithic way of life actually start undertaking Neolithic ways of life, and that is how transformations happen. No, evidence do not quite suggest it. There is a fair degree of resilience, there is fair degree of continuity offered by these ways of life, Mesolithic ways of life or Paleolithic ways of life, even after coming into contact with the so called superior social organization of Neolithic age or even Chalcolithic age. And these commonsensical logical conclusions cannot be rushed upon unless they are matched by seamless transition without any hiatus. So, what is hiatus? In two stratigraphic or in the stratigraphic sequence of a site, if a particular stage is inhabited stage where people are living and therefore there are some artifacts, and then we find nothing over it. So, for good number of time, for good number of years, exhibited by the depth of that absence of any artifact, which we called debris. So, it is devoid of any debris and any artifact, and it is just debris. And then subsequently, after a point of time, again there is a new community or there is a new habitation. So, that is hiatus, that is that discontinuity of settlement, right. And that tells us that not all ways of life and communities seamlessly transformed itself from the earlier mode of life into the newer mode of life, say from Paleolithic to Mesolithic, from Mesolithic to Neolithic and so forth. And wherever we find such continuity, it becomes a very spectacular type site kind of a study for archaeologists. Mehrgarh, we all have heard of. Mehrgarh is important not only now it is in present day Pakistan, but it is studied with reference to the origin of the iconic Harappan civilization, parts of which are very much in India as well. So, why it is important, why Mehrgarh is important? Because it is the earliest Neolithic site in the Indian subcontinent, yes, right from 7000 BCE. It offers us evidence of say settled life, mud brick built houses, agriculture and animal domestication, and subsequently ceramic tradition comes in. So, Mehrgarh becomes important on account of the site being the earliest instance of Neolithic way of life in the Indian subcontinent, but it is important also because right from 7000 BCE down to say 3500 or 3200 BCE, it gives us evidence of continued inhabitation, and that inhabitation right from 7000 BCE to around say 3500, 3200 BCE, this site continued to be inhabited by communities which obviously had begun with Neolithic way of life, but had seamlessly, slowly, gradually been taking been taking to newer ways of life also. So, early Chalcolithic and to the extent that it almost started anticipating what went on to constitute Harappan way of life. Not the urban aspect, not in entirety, but quite a few traits and attributes of Harappan life in terms of the symbols used, in terms of several other aspects of habitation and everyday life. One can study Mehrgarh as a site which existed in continuum from 7000 BCE up to 3200 BC, and by 3200 BCE Neolithic way of life had spread to nearby areas. There were several other contemporary Neolithic cultures, and some degree of you can say some degree of uniformity, cultural uniformity was being arrived at, and this is why Mehrgarh as a site is important for us, is important archaeologically for us. Similarly, we have studies that have compared the relative frequency of blades and hunting tools at several sites, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Chalcolithic included, and such comparisons of the relative frequency of tools used by prehistoric communities, they show that between the late hunting, which is Mesolithic, and Chalcolithic stages, there is a marked fall in the proportion of points and barbs used as projectiles in hunting. These are fresh insights that can offer new meaning to whatever findings that we get from archaeology. So, when bones of wild animals occur at farming sites, then the inference need not be that hunting remained an integral part of subsistence, as we discussed earlier. It may be also due to exchange with a contiguous settlement, with a nearby settlement which is living in another stage of say community life. It could be hunting and gathering, it could be Mesolithic and so forth, right. Even in Iron Age, for example, even during the period of Harappa, we do get the evidence of Atavikas who are perhaps forest dwellers and not socialized to the mainstream agrarian communities, ethos and ways of life. So, similarly, V. N. Mishra's work gives us a list of such sites, such settlements where such coexistence of different ways of life in terms of hunting and gathering and Neolithic can be seen. Similarly, M.L.K. Murthy's work, ethno-archaeology of Kurnool cave area, we get bones of domesticated animals and Chalcolithic potsherds found in Mesolithic cave sites of Kurnool, and farmers driving their animals up to the caves could have been a possibility. Similarly, in the nearby sites of Ramapuram, we have bones of wild animals. Another work studies the oral traditions of the mobile Kuruva pastoralists of southern Deccan, and this study reveals that sometime in past a pastoral group perhaps fissioned out from agricultural mainstream communities, and that pastoral agricultural relationship had inbuilt antagonism. So, they were living together, pastoral group and agrarian group living together, and over a period of time they realized that they cannot live together anymore. The Deccan ash mound sites of Neolithic period offer a good example, offer a good case in this, and they chose to live differently. So, such instance in human history can be studied with reference to the archaeological insight, which are very incisive, and it allows us to move away from the logical linear reconstruction of everything, sanitized version which is very cogent from outside to look at, but perhaps the reality could have been little different. So, these are some of the insights that can be offered by archaeology in the study of proto-history and prehistory of the Indian subcontinent. Thank you.